to respond to them, and then we will take follow-up questions, and we will close our briefing. May I therefore hand it over to you, Dinang.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Comrade Mahlase, for your arrangement that on behalf of the PTT, as you are our spokespersons, we do have this exposure as a subcommittee on education, health, science and technology. I'm just here as a chairperson, and I'm sure if what I'm going to present to you will need clarity, my comrade Cde Hlomuka will be more than capable to deal with that part. We warmly welcome you to this briefing, and we extend our sincere gratitude for your presence. Education has always been a strategic focal point for the African National Congress, rooted in the history of conviction that the liberation of our people is incomplete without the liberation of the mind. As a subcommittee of the African National Congress that has been accorded the stewardship of our education, we deem it apt that we have this critical conversation with yourself, particularly at this time of the year, where we are not only celebrating the matric class of 2025, but a period which marks the reopening of schools for the beginning of 2026 academic year. The matric class of 2025, which is our moment of national pride, before we delve into tireless work, the Thandeni Dlungwane, MEC Mbali Fraser, now MEC Hlomuka. Oh yes, advocate, MEC Kwazimshengo. So thank you so much. I was just remembering from my head instead of writing them all down. But through disciplined governance, consistent policy implementation, and untiring political commitment, the ANC has made education an apex priority of the democratic government. We have risen above decades of systemic challenges to build a department that is resilient, capable, and world-class. The legacy of transformation is that the story of education in KwaZulu-Natal is one of a deliberate and transformative action. Those who speak loudly of a crisis often forget that the broken legacy the ANC inherited was a fragmented, racially segregated system designed to reproduce poverty and exclusions. One of the most profound achievements has been the successful integration of 8 racially disparate departments into one unified, inclusive, and equitable public education system. This shift from the apartheid value of separate development to our democratic value of social justice is evidenced by a consistent upward trajectory in every measurable metric. Through evidence-based intervention and robust policy instruments, such as the introduction of the CAPS curriculum, we have built a system founded on access, dignity, and quality. A record of remarkable academic performance is that the Department of Education is not merely managing pass rates, but ANC is shaping a future-ready generation. The progress in learner performance, particularly in the National Senior Certificate examination, serves as a direct rebuttal to those who doubt the capacity of the democratic state. Someone gave me a gadget whose battery is about to close. So MEC Hlomuka, maybe once that happened, I'll take over from yours. Just to give a bit of a history of the matric pass rate, in 2008, the provincial pass rate stood at 57.8%. Through disciplined governance and sustainable curriculum support, the province rose to 89.5% in 2024 and now celebrates a historic 90.6% in 2025. First of its kind in the country and the first province in the country to have gone that far. The bachelor passes. These gateways to higher education have risen from 22.4% in 2011 to nearly 50% today, opening the doors of opportunity for the children of the working class and the poor. It's important to note that even before we got spot number 1 in the country, even last year, the majority of bachelors in the country were from this province. Even though we were not sitting as province, this province has always had the biggest ever number of bachelor passes, even not sitting and even in position 1. Our province has recorded significantly stronger performance in mathematics and physical sciences, ensuring our learners are competitive in a global science-driven economy. We need to touch on infrastructure and the digital frontier. That the ANC believes that learning must occur in safe, dignified and modern environments. While some focus on isolated incidents, the ANC's revolutionary infrastructure program has delivered a particular scale that we are proud of. Giving examples, on schools and upgrades. Since 2009, 307 new and replacement schools have been built and 775 schools have been upgraded. On sanitation and water, 2,187 schools received new sanitation facilities and pit latrines were eradicated in 1,267 schools. Furthermore, water infrastructure has been provided to 2,745 schools, including the installation of boreholes in 724 schools. Let's touch a bit on the 4th Industrial Revolution that KwaZulu-Natal is leading the digital charge with 92 full smart schools and the introduction of coding and robotics in 260 schools. Our specialized engineering and focus schools are creating the technical skills required for the 21st century. The ANC ensures that poverty is never a barrier to education and to enter classroom. That has happened now. Where are we? Thank you. The education is actually mentioning that the poverty is never a barrier to enter the classroom. Our social protection model is the most extensive in this country. No fee schools. 81% of our learners attend schools without burden of fees. Now, that is very critical. And the ANC did this even without knowing how much money we have in the kitty as a country, to say no learner should be at home because there's an expectation that you must go and pay at school. Go to school, no money in this family. There's still a challenge of unemployment. Yes, but that must not hinder any child to go and access education. Further on, when you are poor and you go to school, you don't pay, we want to actually support you with nutrition. The National School Nutrition Program provides balanced meals to over 2.4 million learners across 5,446 schools daily. This is a vital intervention that reduces absenteeism and improves cognitive performance. Comrade Hlomuka, you did not insert what I've since learned here, that I don't know whether, but I don't think it's only 2.4 million, but there are some learners, especially in primary schools, that are not only getting this meal a day, but they are now getting breakfast. Now, that part is not inserted, so I won't be able to know the numbers, but we do know that there are learners now who go to school, not only wait for 10:30 meal, but they enter the classroom and start with a breakfast. On comprehensive support, over 76,000 learners benefit from scholar transport, and more than 21,800 learners with disabilities receive specialized support. On foundational learning, the migration of early childhood development in ECD into the basic education sector marks a historic step in redressing inequality from the earlier stages of learning. On confronting realities with strategic stability, yes, we can't forget to mention the crisis of historic underfunding. These successes are now overshadowed by a systemic financial crisis that is placing the entire operational capacity of the department at risk. The core problem is historical and prolonged underfunding. Some of us can actually attest to that who were then there much, much earlier. the department was forced to absorb a staggering 26 billion budget cut over the last medium-term expenditure framework. This financial reality, combined with the insufficient funding for mandated wage agreements, has distorted the budget to the point of unsustainability. Currently, 89.8% of the department's equitable share budget is consumed by the compensation of employees, where in some departments this is kept at about 60%. Because this is a labor-intensive department, you just cannot not have this number of staff members that are employed. This leaves a negligible balance for core non-personal expenditure, which translates to a state of effective financial collapse for the critical services. The department finds it difficult to afford current field posts and fill crucial non-essential vacancies. This is actively creating a risk of adverse audit outcomes. For example, all posts in the Internal Control Directorate are vacant, except for one of a deputy director. In certain instances, the department has difficulties paying municipalities for essential services, water and lights. Furthermore, it finds it struggling to pay norms and standards to schools on time, severely impacting on school functionality. Also, we can't finish without mentioning the issues on operational risk regarding the LTSM and NSLP. The financial crisis already created an imminent threat to two of the department's education most vital programs. One is the National School Nutrition Program. This program is a major success, feeding over 2.4 million learners, as I've indicated, daily, and employing nearly 15,000 food handlers. It is a direct poverty alleviation and a social stability tool. However, the inability to consistently pay norms and standards to schools on time places the entire structure of this vital food provision program under pressure, jeopardizing the consistent supply of meals to our most vulnerable children. On the learner and teaching support material, the department faced a severe funding gap for the 2026 academic year. We were forced to procure stationery only under the condition of negotiating a delayed payment of 496 million with the service provider to say, please, can you supply us? Nevertheless, we'll pay you later. We don't have it now. We need this part. This desperate measure created a high risk of non-delivery, of late delivery of essential textbooks and stationery on the first day of school year, which would result in chaos and directly undermining our progress in education quality. So if you do go to any school now and hear that they are getting the material today or yesterday or they are getting it next week, it is under this, and it's not because we just did not want to deliver. There are pressures to deliver on time as we used to. When the schools closed the previous year, that's when such material go to school. But this year there's been a challenge. Some of it has not even reached the schools now, but this week and next week we will be. The far-reaching crisis of deviation in norms and standards. It will be important to mention that we are concerned that the allocation of transfers to schools for norms and standards in KwaZulu-Natal is almost half of the national benchmark. And I can say this without showing the figures, but my MEC will be able to do this, was he presents to us as a subcommittee, and we see these disparities on the national benchmark to say, why is KwaZulu-Natal different from the rest of the other provinces? This is attributable to the insufficient budget allocation and the continued austerity measures that have resulted in significant cuts to the education budget. This is further exacerbated by the high number of qualifying non-fee paying quintile 1 schools in the province. The misallocation has far-reaching consequences that require urgent interventions that consider provincial dynamics in ensuring equitable distribution of resources. This was further affirmed by the 5th National Policy Conference, which resolved for the expansion and protection of non-fee paying schools and the increase in per learner allocation to schools. On the scholar transport, we need to mention that this program marks a difference This program marks a difference between access and lack of access to education for thousands of learners across the province. In the main, the program benefits learners from poor households. However, there is an urgent need to standardize policy on scholar transport in terms of qualifying criteria with regard to the raters from the school of need. This will allow the program to reach the most deserving learners. Critically, there is an urgent need to accommodate the 157,000 learners are currently on the waiting list, which requires an estimated 1.6 billion. These successes and challenges paint a picture of a department that is deeply committed to honoring the injunction of the Freedom Charter, which states that the doors of learning and culture shall be open. However, it's a task that requires a collective effort across all sectors to ensure that we build a better future for generations to come. All social partners, including organized labor, business, civil society, and other role players, must contribute even more to build a resilient and robust department of education that is able to carry its mandate. In this regard, all of us must resist the temptation to politicize education. So Comrade Hlomuka will actually expand on issues of a school of need and a school of choice. That if you then want to go to a school 20 kilometers away from where you live, but there are schools just as capable around where you live, then that is your school of choice. It's not a school of need. And therefore, we would be very thin to support transport to the school of choice. Rather, we should deal with the school of need. And that is one part that I've really been educated from my department. Let us therefore deal with some of the immediate actions to deepen transformation. The ANC has instructed its own deployee, Comrade Hlomuka, to, within the ambit of obtaining administrative prescripts, urgently craft and implement a strategy to address issues of systemic challenges which manifest themselves, among others, inefficiencies and leaks in the deployment of its budget. Some of them that I have given above here are actually things that can be looked into. The ANC is engaging its GPU partners to implement a zero-based budgeting approach to the department going forward. As we are all aware, a zero-based budgeting is a financial strategy where every expense must be justified from scratch for each new period, effectively starting the budget from a zero base, rather than using the previous year's spending as a baseline. We call upon our communities to become the first line of defense for our schools. This is to address really the people's assets. When we leave a school there, we say this school belongs to this community. Now, it can't be a responsibility of MEC, the HOD, and the department to go and check and that the vandalism does not take place. These are the assets of the people. To vandalize them is to destroy the future of our children. We call upon parents to partner with educators and on learners to rise to their responsibility as builders of a new society, South Africa. The ANC remains the unwavering defender of public education. We reject the privatization of schooling and any move towards austerity that threatens our hard-won gains. Quality education must never be a luxury for the few. It is a public good and a fundamental right for the many. The 90.6 matric pass rate achieved by the class of 2025 is a victory of the country, championed by the African National Congress, and is a victory of the working class. It proves that despite the noise of an uninformed, the ANC plan is working, that even a child of a domestic worker can actually obtain 8 distinctions and have access to a best university and come back as an engineer. Education is not an expense, it is our greatest investment. We remain the only movement with the experience, the vision, and the political will to ensure that no child in KwaZulu-Natal is left behind. It doesn't matter which background the child comes from. We want to call upon all of us to say forward with the education and forward with the leader of the society in championing this, who happens to be the African National Congress. Siyabonga kakhulu ke kubo bonke kade besithamele. Thank you very much, Commissioner Mahlasi.
Siyabonga Tinangwe kulesithangani sabezindaba. Sizothatha ke imibuzo in the event that there are questions, may we take questions so that when we respond, Comrade Hlomuka will then expand in areas that the chair has suggested that he may need to expand in them. Can we take the first set of hands and then we move from that sequence? By the show of hands, may I then invite hands? Ndlovu. Number 2. No, any other hand, just 2 hands. Okay.
So because more 90% of budget goes to salaries. Then you ask yourself, what's the core business of Lumnyango Magoja? Because so we don't have Lumnyango, a department anyway, where it has to employ people, then it doesn't deliver at the end of the day. So because there is a kind of school. There are many schools that are not paying. Then more also could can you go back and say if it's called declared an office school 20 years ago, that committee number I reckon to 7 hours to a manager. We told Abasad, they are not okay, they will go community, but they can afford. Then we was okay, Ukumani Malu told up here, okay, I was okay, I found the Lumiangolo, who was services, infrastructure, all of things. All that's number 1. Number 2, something was on with the statement. It was a very negative issue in America. Or no, can document it for us. In answer is access education. Now, the consumer budget economy, because when you find it okay, the mother in Canada is not for us, it's for down. This is a little bit similar. I know the policy of the okay, I was within the man. So, get on ahead. I can't especially relating to the season. So, there's a much check the budget. What is the plan for this? With every year, so I know 90% of budget will not salaries. They don't couldn't score and as guys are key as a collapse and infrastructure forever. What is the plan then? Just to get over this problem.
Okay. Those 2 questions.
Yeah.
Am I capturing you correctly to say you are calling for a review on no-fee schools?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes.
Cde Sipho Hlomuka from Newsroom Africa. Mine is directed to MEC. It's actually on the point that my colleague just mentioned, Eddington Primary School. What is the response from the department in terms of what actually transpired yesterday with the South African parents that feel as if, well, some of them feel as if their children are not being prioritized because space is being given to foreign children of foreign nationals. What is the response of the department, and how does the department respond to claims of undocumented immigrants also having their children at the school? And also, how do you plan on tackling the issue, particularly because there's a number of parents, some of whom we spoke to this morning, that state that their children still have not been placed for the 2026 academic year, but children of immigrant children have already received placements? Thank you.
Okay. I think those are two questions, colleagues.
Yeah, for now.
For now. Oh, okay. There might not be another chance.
Oh.
Yeah, but asikudelele mntanazi kanoxa kubambe lo ngabamba khona, then we'll brief up what we can. There are two questions. The one is about salaries. That 90% of salaries, 90% of the budget goes to salaries. Then the second one is the issue of undocumented foreigners. I think it's a broad question that you may just elaborate at length about it, and then we'll take it from there. Thank you.
No, thanks, spokesperson, and thanks to our chair of the subcommittee in the ANC, and greetings to our colleagues from media. I think the chair have covered our input as an ANC on the basis of the work done in the subcommittee and how we are guiding in terms of education. Then us as deployees in government, we need to implement those policies and programs that derive from the engagement, engaging with the people in general. It's correct that most of the budget of the Department of Education is allocated to employment, of which we must appreciate that, because part of our responsibility as the ANC is to create job opportunities. When much budget is allocated to create job opportunities, we must appreciate that. But however, part of 9 or 10% of our budget is allocated to various programs. Part of those programs is infrastructure. We continue to build new schools, we continue to maintain schools, we continue to build sanitation and provide water to our schools. We're just going to open one school here called Maritime School, one of the beautiful school in the province. But it's correct that because of the cut, as the chair have already indicated, cut from treasurer at the national level, which then comes to the province, it affects in creating more job opportunities, because we can't at the moment able to employ support staff at the head office, at the district level, even at the circuit level. But for for educators, who are employing them any day, because we agreed that we can't disrupt teaching and learning. There must be no learner that must not have a teacher. Hence, our focus is more on ensuring that no schools, no learner must not have an educator. But we are engaging with national leadership in government. We are engaging with national government to say, can you not cut budget for Department of Education, but can you put more allocation so that we're able to deal with challenges that we are faced with. I'm saying that because you raise the issue to say, as more budget is allocated to employment, which then affect infrastructure. There is infrastructure have a conditional grant. It's a grant that is an allocation that we can't use it for any other services. We can't use it. It's 2.4 billion currently. We can't use it for employment. We can't use it for any goods that we want, or goods and services that we might want to use. So schools that need to be repaired, they were still going to repair. There's budget for that. Schools that need to be, new schools need to be built or upgrade. There's budget for that. It's just that it's limited because we have 5,000 8,000 schools in KwaZulu-Natal. It's the only province that have that such number in the country. That's why we have more than 2.8 learners in the province. It's the only province that have that number. We are followed by Gauteng, which Gauteng have more budget than us, but their learners are less than us because they are 2.3 million, while ours is 2.8. So that's what we are engaging at the national level. So saying, I think we need to change the funding model based on what I've already indicated. Look, on the issue of undocumented, I think we need to separate issues. There are undocumented learners in the school. That's how they are recorded. Undocumented learners. There are documented learners who are coming from foreign brothers and sisters. So we're saying, because there are undocumented learners coming from South Africa, for those learners that our South Africans, they will just not going to go to hospital at that time, because now we have changed. Before you leave a hospital now, you must have a birth certificate. But before, they normally register a child after 7 days or 10 days, but they have changed. So some of the parents of those learners, they just left learners without proper certificates, which are birth certificates, which then they are recorded. I can give you proof of that, of learners that are recorded, which are South African, but are recorded as undocumented learners because there are no paperwork, but they are born in South Africa. Their parents are from South Africa, of which they are not even receiving grants. Those are the challenges that we are faced with. But we are saying as one, there is no government that can allow illegal foreigners, because we allow foreigners in generally. All foreigners must be registered in South Africa. So those that are registered for whatever purposes and happen to have child, because they are registered, they have a right to take their learners or their children to school. They have a right to take their children to any other institution. But for illegal foreigners, we also call for law enforcement or Home Affairs to deal with that. But the Constitution of Republic saying anyone who's in the land of South Africa have a right to be receive services. So we're guided by the Constitution. But we're saying those that are illegal must be processed by the relevant authorities, because they are also affecting our budget. If they are illegal foreigners and they're in school, that means they are not recorded. They are not here in South Africa legal. And you know, generally, if you are not in the country legally, there are processes that must take place. I think this allow or those authorities, Home Affairs. I think we can also talk to the Minister of Home Affairs. At least you know the Minister of Home Affairs must deal with that. Thank you very much.
Yeah. You know, the president of the ANC, Nelson Mandela, once said, education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. I'm saying this trying to premise the response that Udinang will comment on regarding your call for us to review on issues of no-fee school. Perhaps it is also important to understand that it remains a constitutional right to have access to basic education. And for us to do so, we need to remove financial barriers for our communities. However, I hear the call that you are calling for us to review, but I thought those founding pillars will also help society to understand the challenges that we're faced with as a nation and the era where we are and where we come from. It may not be as quick as that to say, let us review this process that seeks to benefit those who were historically disadvantaged in the past. Dinang, maybe sort of one.
Thanks. The first State of the Nation address of President Nelson Mandela, you have put it rightly, he just came up, and I could even refer you on page 4 of that State of the Nation. He said that all children under 6 years must access health services without paying a cent. All pregnant women must access health services free of charge. The impact of that has been huge. Women who otherwise would have died at home because they don't have transport fees and also not have clinic fees would have died, and there's been a significant shift on that. Some of us refer to that as a mini NHI. Now we are calling for a bigger access to health services, irrespective of whether you have money or not. Now, health and education are almost like a twin service deliveries into like twin programs that you can't actually, we call it as a public good for both. Now, we must have to assess whether in that community what was pertaining then has changed in terms of that school being allocated a no fee because of the environment where people come from. But it can't be a barrier to access health, to access education because of the financial, of the pocket you have. It shouldn't be. That is why I'm saying it was a very staggered approach. Even on education, it has been a very staggered approach to say, let's start with that basic, now high schools, now universities, because it can't be. There are countries that have gone that far. So I don't think our levels of not having enough resources will ever push us to consider getting education and health not to be funded by the state in full. In fact, we would want to push to that. Yes, that is why there are critics even against health getting there in terms of who's going to fund it. It would be resources from within the country. It's strenuous, but it is a very necessary program to continue funding. You might then say, can we assess if that community, all parents there are still that poor not to even pay a cent? Maybe there's another argument that we can't close completely in terms of that. At the time it started, they was just saying no child should be at home because this community does not have enough. The unemployment still remains our biggest challenge. So we are saying to parents, because there's this unemployment, let the child go to school anyway. Because there's this unemployment, let the child not only go to school but have access to food there. And sometimes that is the only food that they have for the day. So that may be assessed as we go along, as we go and see improvements in terms of other resources.
Thank you, colleagues. Can we then take the second set of hands with an intention to close after that second set of hands? Is there any follow-up? Yes, sir. You're number 1. You're number 2. We're dealing with twins. First set was 2. Second set is 2. We are good to go. You may proceed.
To pass for 100%. Kodwa manje umthetho ngathi uthi mangabe thola 30% kulo ahlolwa ngakho esikoleni kumele ethi aphasiswe. So checker ukuthi as ANC nikuboka lo njengoba abanye bekhumusha ngokuthi kuzo esikhathini esizayo kuzogcina kwenzekile izingane noma abantu abangenalo ulwazi olwanele noma oluphelele kahle bathoba ukuphaswa ngephesenti eliphansi kangaka. Okwesibili ngifisa ukucaciseleka kahle kulena School of school of need ne-school of choice. Mhlawumbe umhlonishwa akayicacise kahle leyo nokuthi isebenza kanjani, kanjalo noxhaso lukahulumeni maqondana nomfundi osuke engene leso sikole. Okwesithathu bese ngizogcina. Okwesithathu mhlawumbe i-ANC inalo neqhinga lokuqeda ukungalingani phakathi kwabafundi noma ngokwe-society ngokomphakathi phakathi kwey'kole zasemalokishini nasetikoleni ezisendaweni tasemakhaya. Mhlawumbe sengingaphetha ukuthi iseyinkulu-ke nanenkinga yekungabikho kwezobuchwepheshe ey'koleni ikakhulukazi isey'ndaweni zasemakhaya. ANC response la. Ngiyabonga.
One of us is when you're not in that. When you refer to the ANC under Mandela, I think Mandela anticipated that the economy will grow. All the decisions, material grants, free schools, free education. It's all the ANC. It's all the economy will grow. Just to fund the same decision. Now that the economy is not growing, that's why you find such things like inflation. When you go to KwaZulu, so you find okay, most of imali ezingabaqhamuka Mozambique. Umama uyakhulelwa 8 months, umama would cross to this side, so these are issues where as well as equality now. So njengoba ngisho ukuthi mhlawumbe uMandela phela ku-1994 so the economy will grow very well, so we'll fund these projects mahle very because as you said okay kumele i-actually health services 6 years nemfundo ze-access akho umuntu kumele angafundi ngenxa yokuthi akanayo imali. Umbuzo okay imali isuke izophuma ekugcineni, but ANC of today is keeping those decisions. Whereas there's no funding. That's what I'm trying to from the kind of funding today. 90% will hold them, 10%. Now, when you know infrastructure and all of things, when it's money is what the number issue. Secondly, who do not discuss it, if the settlement, who tell me that is 157,000 as the school transport. And the wash will not take it together. 1.6 billion. Now I'm here so no matter is just to keep the phone. I'm a fancy. So now we're going back to the issue of funding, which is the main issue, isn't it? Because they don't shoot okay. So there's no point imposing that okay Lumiya is employing more people. Then the companies say are you on there? Really, it's a pay. Okay, maybe not local. Younger days when I was a rotation cash. As a business, was in more than 50. Once what cash, back at the cash. One rotation, we are going to meet today. Let's call it a collude. Monkey is calling the same as another. So still, there is no point for me with my system. But I'm saying so I members are answer. Observance and I'm okay, they can decide later. Secondly, the issue about documented foreigners. It's a call I'm going to like open the like who tell you that I should have okay, we are editing today. Not is or that it is today. Where she met parents, other locals. Basha would okay. Now, apparently, we know okay. Obabazo, ye illegally. Now, so not Baba very good and illegally. So that's one also is called as soon as so can't defend it to home affairs. I'm going getting that escorted that is under so if there be more than a pound, West Street, they can go to home affairs and go for Nanda. But go on to what's the classic?
Okay. Siyakuzwa. I think it is also important that we familiarize ourselves with the Constitution of the Republic. But be that as it may, there are four questions, colleagues, comrades. One is about the difference between the school of needs and the school of choice. The strategy to bring balance in terms of schools, whether you are from a rural area, a township, or an urban area, to have a strategy that will bring synergy across. Then the last one was the issue of technology, that we seems not to be moving with speed when it comes to issues of technology. I don't know whether all questions were captured correctly.
Yeah, that's it.
Then the last one will be is the 30% pass mark. Okay, and then the two follow-ups that talks about no fee schools, and yeah, I think those are the
So the issue of funding.
questions. Then the issue of funding, to say how then do we fund the programs that government comes with to ensure that the poor is not affected. And Mlov is saying we shouldn't necessarily be preoccupied with the poor. We should be preoccupied about the budget. How do we solicit budget? As a leader of society, we need to balance the two. We need to balance the issue of budgeting, but also the issue of services to our people. There are things that you may not say, but their direct interpretation and implication means exactly that. So we can't shortchange each other on this one. Right? Dinangwe, asidedele uHlomuka kuqala bese sum up. I don't think there will be any other follow-up question after that. Thank you.
Well, thanks again, Chair, spokesperson, and thanks, colleagues, for questions or input. Look, we are guided by the Constitution. Anything that we do come from the Constitution. Any act, any policy comes from the Constitution. You know, for sure, you are familiar with Chapter 2 of the Constitution, which talk about bills of rights, which indicate the right of everyone in the country, in the land. I think that's why the speaker was saying, let's visit ourselves, let's familiarize ourselves with the Constitution. When I was responding to the issue of editing school, I was talking about schools in general, including, because it might not be the only school that we might have undocumented learners. You refer again to Mangus, Mhlabialingan, and you spoke about Mozambique and so on and so forth. Hence, my response was saying we have number of undocumented learners who are South African, who are foreigners. We're then saying, currently the department is doing an assessment of how many foreigners learners in our school, so that we understand not only undocumented, because there are a number of undocumented South Africans, as already indicated, so that we're able to understand if how many learners that are coming from outside the country, are they here in South Africa legally? If they're not here in South Africa legally, we're going to report that to relevant authorities. You know, the reason I was referring to Home Affairs have a policy of deporting. For sure, we've heard about that. So we don't have control of that. We're not authorities to deal with that. Any illegal foreigner must be subjected to a process. I think I've answered now you on this issue. Then on the, it's not correct that my leader that pass rate for learners is 30%. It's not correct. It's just that those who want to be popular, they will say that our education is bad because our learners, they pass with 30%, of which is not true. One of the principles, you must pass, if you will pass to a next grade, you must at least pass your home language with 40%, with not 30%. If you get 30%, you will fail. I'm just trying to simplify it. Then you also, if you have two subjects with 30%, you will also consider that 30% is part of only two subjects. Then after that, you need to pass subject with more than 40% upward. So because of these two subjects of 30%, then people, they conclude that the pass rate is 30%. It's not true. You can even check, can even give you a documentation that give that information. So I think wherever you are, you need to correct it. Whoever you, if you hear someone saying that, you must correct that person. That person is not informed. That's why the minister have corrected Bosasa. Is this party's Bosasa? Bosa. Yeah. That Bosa. At least when now you are asking, I mean, yeah. No, it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. That's why I'm saying that is not correct. I think I've tried to clarify it. The one government, that's why we spoke about no-fee school. Even schools that are